Dang, that's a good looking
Yeah,
bag,
so I
Bo.
made that over the weekend.
So you made this?
I made this from start to finish.
Oh,
Look at that.
pretty cute.
I even
And
wrote the pattern.
How did you make it? Like what foot? The standard foot, or like what did you use?
The standard foot. David,
Yeah.
you know how many feet I used to make this thing? This is not just a standard foot project. It's like,
All of those accessories?
yeah,
Can you tell us more?
I sure can.
It's David from Gigi's Fabric Shop, home to Juki and Janome Junkies. And in today's video, I am extremely excited to announce we are launching a 4-part series. In this 4-part series, we're gonna be breaking it down into 4 different parts. In part 1, we're gonna be going over every accessory you can purchase for your Juki TL. And that's of course gonna be all of the Juki authentic parts, with the exception of 3 aftermarket parts that we have designed and manufactured that we saw was needed for the Juki TL. In part 2, we're gonna be going over all the parts categorized for just our garment sewers. So if you're a garment sewer and you're looking for what accessories you need, watch part 2, because that's gonna be going over all those parts and kind of showing you what they're used for in garment sewing. So that's gonna be super, super cool. In part 3, we're gonna be talking about all the parts needed for our bag makers on the Juki TL. This is gonna be a super cool video. We're gonna get all the parts that we see fit for bag making, and we're gonna go over each one and what they're used for in bag making, so you know what parts you'll need for your bag making experience with the TL. And finally, in part 4, we're gonna be going over all of the Juki accessories for the TL for our quilters. So if you're a quilter and you're looking for accessories or what accessories you might be missing in your quilting experience, watch our part 4 of this video, and we're gonna show you every accessory we find is needed for our TLs. You are watching part 3, where we're gonna be talking about all the bag making accessories for the Juki TL. We're gonna go over them briefly and show you the application in which they're used for when sewing bags. And don't forget that this is a 4-part series, so if you're interested in any of the other parts, definitely check the description or look at the little info cards will pop up, where we're gonna show you all of the other parts that we've already recorded. And if they're not already up, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on that little ring bell so you're notified when the future videos are uploaded. We have one more part after this video, the quilting one. So that one's super cool and you're not gonna wanna miss it. So without further ado, let's let Boki take over the stage and talk about all the accessories for bag making.
Hey guys, it's Boki here, and we are gonna go over all of the accessories that I think would be spectacular to have in your stash for your Juki TL for bag making. So much like our previous episode, I'm gonna dive into these feet. I'm gonna explain what they're used for. I'm gonna try to give your brain like a good visual of how to use them. Just keep in mind that these can be interpreted per your use. So take what they're used for and kind of design for and what they do and add them to your application so they can suit you the best, all right? So I'm gonna start off with those couple basics, just like last episode, that I feel like everyone should know about. Maybe you don't know about them, and just kind of, because these are universal for really almost everything. So starting off strong is the standard presser foot. The standard presser foot comes installed on your Juki TL no matter which one you purchase. And this foot gives you a scant 1/4 inch, meaning it's just shy of that accurate 1/4 inch that you might be looking for in your projects. This is kind of your all-purpose foot. I mean, it can do lots of different things, lots of different functions. It's nice and skinny and really gets the job done. So if you've lost yours or maybe need a backup, head over to JukiJunkies.com for that. The next one I want to talk about is your walking foot, or the even feed foot. This comes standard on your Juki TL series as well, but maybe you lost it or something happened to it. You can always purchase this. Your walking foot is something you definitely want to have on hand no matter what kind of sewing you're doing, but especially in bags too, because it can get pretty bulky in those bags. So it's definitely nice to have that walking foot with those feed dogs on the top to help grab that fabric and feed it through really nice and smooth. All right. The next little guy is that extension cord. I am so happy that we manufacture these cords because there was definitely a big need for them. So if you're somebody who has a standing desk or maybe a really wide desk and the cord kind of has to run through the back and you feel like your foot pedal is just kind of dangling off and you can't really use it, that's what this is for. So this will plug into your machine, and then the opposite end is a little female piece where you'll just plug in your foot pedal, so that way you have an extra long extension. Very, very helpful for all kinds of sewing, just to help your setup there. Next up, we have the LED light strip. This is super, super helpful just to have a better visibility, see more light, see your details, those seams a little bit closer. So this is an attachable LED light strip that is dimmable. We have an installation video on this as well that you guys can check out. It might be thrown up in this corner or linked down in the description, so just make sure you look out for that. All right. The next one is this little foot switch stopper. Depending on which machine you have, this may or may not come with it. I know this comes with the TL15 and it comes on the TL18 standard, but this little guy goes on the bottom of your foot pedal because the foot pedal is a two-part function. Forward means sew, heel click means cutting the thread. It would be really unfortunate if you were doing that final top stitch on your bag and you accidentally press the little heel function and it cuts the thread, and you either have to seam rip or start over, or if you're feeling like a lazy sewer, you just go over it like I do sometimes. So this will be really nice to add to the bottom to help avoid those little boo-boos. The oiling pen, this is super, super crucial for you guys to have to understand how to oil your machines. The Juki oil pen is refillable. You guys can get the oil and the pen itself on JukiJunkies.com. This is great. Make sure you watch the video on how to properly oil your Juki TL machine. It is very important that you are not over oiling, and just keeping that in mind. Oiling is super, super important, but check that video out. All right? So first thing I want to talk about is the throat plate. So I get asked all the time, what throat plate comes on the Juki TL series? It's just the standard throat plate. Nothing special to it, just the standard one, has a standard opening to it. There are two other optional attachments that you can purchase for the Juki TL. There's the thin throat plate and the thick throat plate. The thick throat plate is definitely going to fall under our bag making category because, as we all know, in bags, those seams can get pretty thick. Not only do the seams get pretty thick, but our needles get pretty thick. Our thread gets pretty thick. So what happens here from the standard plate to the thick throat plate is the opening on the needle plate gets a little bit larger. It helps with that flex of the needle. It helps with the diameter of the needle if you're using really big size needles. So this is going to help you not hit the needle plate, get broken needles, bent needles, skip stitches, and things like that. I would highly, highly recommend this for my bag makers out there. So that's this little basket. Let's dive into the next group.
I'm excited to announce we have launched our own Juki TL accessory catalog titled Collect Them All. It'll have every Juki TL accessory along with a detailed description, tips, tricks, and video links telling you how to use these accessories. And it's going to be extremely nice because you can stay organized in collecting them and add some to the wish list that you might need. It's a PDF download. It's $4.99. It comes with an exclusive coupon code that's going to pretty much pay for it all. And this was a recommendation from one of our fans on our last video. So we appreciate you for recommending and commenting down below. Give us a comment if you have any suggestions. We love hearing from you and we love bringing it to our business. So with that being said, let's get back to the video. Check this out in the link below.
All right, so the next little group is going to be helpful if you are working with vinyl, cork, marine vinyl, clear vinyls, anything that is a synthetic material that has a little bit of tack to it. Those materials that once the hole is there, and it's really hard to get out. It's not forgiving like cotton. The first foot I want to talk about is the smooth presser foot, or we like to call it the Teflon foot. A lot of people call it that because it's made out of that non-slip coating. It's a kind of plastic looking foot that's designed to help minimize any tack to those types of materials. We have a really great video talking about the types of things to have in your sewing stash when working with vinyl, so I'll link that above right here so you can get a nice, really in-depth example of how this is used. But this is going to help reduce puckering. It's going to help your stitch length be longer because there's less resistance. It's not going to stick to that material, so this is a must-have in the bag making world for any type of sticky materials. This goes hand in hand with the roller foot. The roller foot is something that we've actually outsourced. It's an aftermarket option, so not a genuine Juki part, but I can't rave about this foot enough. It has little rollers on the bottom to help guide over the materials. Sometimes a walking foot can just be too much on vinyls. It can leave imprints on the vinyl. So this is going to help a lot with just helping feed through that material. Also really nice for any type of textured vinyls, ostrich, alligator, that has an unevenness to it. This will help kind of feed through a little better, like a little race car. So the roller foot is definitely very helpful. All right, so our next group is gonna be our zipper feet. I have a very in-depth 2-part video on zipper feet for the TLs, so go ahead and watch those as well. Those will give you a really nice deep breakdown, but for the sake of the video, of course, I'll go into them for you. We have the hinged zipper feet, and these come in 2 different sizes. We have 2.5 millimeter and 3 millimeter. So the 3 millimeter is going to translate into 0.11. These are in inches, y'all, because in the metric system, that's going to apply, of course, over there. But just for it to make a little more sense to us here in the States, that'll be like 0.11, and then 2.5 millimeter is going to be like 0.09. So in the in-depth video I do about the zippers, I kind of explain them as the 3 millimeter is obviously going to be the bigger one, so it's going to be closer to 1/8 of an inch, and then the 2.5 millimeter is going to be smaller, closer to like 1/16 of an inch. So just depending on how close you want to get to that zipper. So these feet are exceptional. They're very, very skinny. They are both hinged, meaning they have a spring located in the back. You just have to decide how close you're trying to get to those seams. So these are very versatile. You don't have to just use them for zippers. Remember how I said take the application and use them? These are going to be great for straps. They're going to be great for the zippers. They're going to be great for the top stitching. Really anything you want to get consistent on the edge of that material. So take these per your application so you can figure out exactly how they'll best fit you, but watch that video for the in-depth breakdown. The other zipper foot that would be really practical as well is the adjustable zipper foot. The adjustable zipper foot comes standard on some Jukies, so make sure you check your manual and your parts to see if you're getting it here. But the adjustable zipper foot is awesome because it has a little spring or a little green screw in the back that is adjustable, so you can move the attachment to the left or to the right of that needle. So little con to this one is that it's just like a solid piece of metal. There's no hinge to it. There's no spring. There's no adjustability to that foot. So you just have to keep that in mind with your bags. If you're working on something very thin, doesn't fluctuate a lot, this will get the job done. Maybe a small zipper pouch. But for your more complex bags and lots of intricate details, this might not be the best option. The next foot that we're going to talk about is the hinged cording foot. In bags, you may find yourself wanting to add like a piping detail or a cording detail. This is definitely a good foot for that. I mean, you could even use this to top stitch zippers as well, just because the needle sits to either the left or the right. This foot does come in both options, left or right, depending on what you need it for. The needle will drop on one side, so it's very useful for the perfect alignment of a wide variety of applications. Really anything where you want to sew right on that edge, such as a concealed seam along zippers and piping, or even cording. It's really nice because it is hinged, so it has that spring in the back to help fluctuate on thick and thin materials. It'll go over a thick seam or a softer seam with no problem at all. So this is very, very universal and versatile. The next one I want to talk about is going to be that compensating extra short foot 1.5 millimeter. This is an awesome little foot that helps you get right on the edge of a top stitch, any kind of detail you want to get to the very, very end. So this is really good for attaching maybe a pocket, appliques, anything that you need a little bit of guidance, but it's nice and short. The foot is not super long, it has a good visibility, and it is a 2-spring system in the back. So this one's going to be great for medium weight to heavyweight materials because it'll compensate for those 2 different levels there. One will kind of press down to keep you nice and straight along the edge for that stitching, all right? This is really, really nice for a wide variety of projects. Great for bags. You could even use this on zippers. You absolutely could if you wanted to get really close to the edge. The 2-part system of this foot just helps you get right to that edge. So how does this compare to something like the spring guide hinged foot? This does come in 2 sizes, however. It comes in the 1.5 millimeter, which translates into like 0.05, and the 3 millimeter, which is like 0.11, all right? So both very, very close to that edge. This foot is a very similar concept, however, it has a little metal guide right to the right of the foot, and it'll sew right to that edge. Depending on which one you purchase, 1.5 or 3, that's what will differentiate when you are actually doing that final top stitch. The spring is nice because it's going to help sit right along that edge of that fabric again for your curves or any type of top stitch that you want to do just to help keep you coordinated and consistent. The only thing to keep in mind with this one is that this is going to be better for the lighter to medium weight projects. The thicker seams, thicker bulk is probably not going to be a good option here just because the wire guide is not going to provide enough support. You want to use something like that compensating extra short foot because it has the 2 springs. This one is hinged with the spring in the back, but it's just one to just kind of help surf over the thicker and thinner, but not really practical for lots of layers. So this is really, really nice for doing lighter weight projects, curves, top stitching, you know, appliques, anything like that on your little bit thinner projects in mind. Next up, my favorite feet, the left and right compensating 1.5 millimeter feet. These are so versatile and I love them so much, and I've done a video about them, so make sure you check that out so you have a nice in-depth explanation on how to use them. But these guys are really, really versatile. They are compensating. I actually just asked my Juki rep the other day, what does compensating mean? It can be really confusing for my customers. What does it do? What does it mean? Well, usually what happens is a compensating foot has a 2-part system. There's one part of the foot on the left, one part of the right. Sometimes it might have 2 springs or 1, but it's helping to compensate for the 2 different layers that you're working with. So depending if you choose the right or the left, the 1.5 will still right on the edge of that little seam. Depending on the application that you're using it for, if you use it for zippers, which I love using it for zippers because it sits right in that groove and helps me get a consistent top stitch on zipper pouches, bags, you name it, really anything you want to get right on the edge. This is fabulous for that. It just depends if you're right-handed or left-handed, that might be a deciding factor for you, but if you're using it in binding or something like that, there are specifications, so make sure you watch that video so you understand which one to purchase if you're trying to use it for binding. But even in bags, there's plenty of bags that require binding details on the inside or maybe the outside. These will really, really help get a consistent top stitch all the way through. All right, so the next group is finding your perfect foot for 1/4 inch. In bags, a 1/4 inch seam allowance is definitely very common, so making sure you're finding the foot that gets you the best results is really important. I do have a very in-depth video about 1/4 inch feet, so make sure you check that out right here, so that way you can kind of see them a little bit more in action so you can understand which one's best for you. But we're going to start off strong with the 1/4 inch foot with the guide first. This one might come standard on your Juki TL, but this one is awesome. It just has a little wire guide right to the right of the foot to help guide your fabric to stay at a consistent 1/4 inch the whole entire time. So it's really, really helpful for those thinner to medium weight fabrics, especially for maybe the linings of your bags or those thinner, finer materials. But do keep in mind this is not going to be super helpful for anything that's a little bit thicker. So for like canvas, denim, vinyl, the things that get a little bit bulkier, this might not be the best fit, but I do have something coming up that'll be really good for you. So 1/4 inch with that guide, very helpful for your thinner to medium weight kind of projects. Next up, we have the compensating 1/4 inch foot. This has a guide also on the right side of the foot, but it's much more heavy duty. It's very thick. It also is controlled by a spring, so it helps apply a little bit of pressure. So when you do come into those moments of where it's really bulky, you have a lot of layers, maybe you have a quilted lining or you're working with something really fluffy or even a foam stabilizer where you need something, you know, to get a 1/4 inch, this could be a great solution for you. It's going to apply pressure. So from medium to heavy weight, this will be great. Not ideal for those thinner projects though, because it'll apply too much pressure. So keep that in mind when deciding, or just have both on hand depending on what kind of sewer you are. This one's definitely my favorite option. The hinged 1/4 inch foot gives you a 1/4 inch without a guide at all. So you don't have to pay attention to if you're sitting in that guide, which is my personal preference because you can use it on thick layers and thin layers. There's not like any limitations to it. It's hinged, so it has a spring in the back to help surf over the thick or the thin seams that you may run across. So this is definitely going to be a very, very helpful tool in bag making world because you can fluctuate between thin or thick without the problem over here. So those are your 1/4 inch options. Moving over to the 7mm options. 7mm is a very common seam allowance used in Europe. So just like here, we get used to seeing our patterns written for a 1/4 inch in the States. You know, abroad and in other countries, they use a 7mm. So these options also come in a 7mm kind of setup. So 7mm translates to 0.27. So it's just a hair over a true 1/4 of an inch. And maybe that'll work for some of your projects, or maybe you bought a pattern in Europe and it requires that. That's what these feet will be used for. So starting off kind of like the same thing, the 7mm foot with the guide on the right. Light to medium weight fabrics, you follow the edge of that guide right to the edge and you'll get that accurate 7mm seam allowance the entire time. So only difference is it's a little bit bigger than a 1/4 of an inch. Next up, we have that 7mm compensating foot. Also has a guide on the right side, but it's much more heavy duty. It has a spring that applies the pressure. So if you're working from medium to heavyweight materials, this will be the better fit for you to get that consistent 7mm seam allowance, okay? Last but not least, the hinged 7mm foot, which however does also come in a 7.5mm option, which kind of translates to 0.29, so it's almost 0.30, so it's much bigger than, you know, a 1/4 of an inch. But same kind of concept as the hinged 1/4 inch foot. There's no guide on this one. It's hinged. It has the spring in the back, so it'll help fluctuate with your thin and thick materials. But you just follow the edge of the foot to either the right or the left, and you'll get that consistent 7 or 7.5mm seam allowance that you might be looking for. If you're enjoying these accessories so far, make sure you head over to JukiJunkies.com to purchase any of these right on our website. It's really easy to find. You'll just go under accessories and click under mechanical, and you'll see all what's offered for the Juki TL series. There's lots of parts. We're a small little family-owned business right outside of Tampa, Florida, and we like to ship out your orders fast. We don't want them here for very long. We want you to enjoy your new parts and new machines. If you ever have any questions or concerns and you can't find something, feel free to give us a call at 813-661-9000 or send us an email. Alrighty, last but not least in this little category is going to be your seam guides. In bag making, 1/4 of an inch is definitely one of the many common seam allowances, but on some bags you might have something greater or something in between, you know, so you want to make sure you're getting those consistent seam allowances to make sure that the bag comes together how it's supposed to. So the first option, there are 3 options, and we do have a nice in-depth video on these as well that I'll link right here for you guys, so you can kind of see them in action a little bit more and talk specifically about. The magnetic seam guide is the most versatile one because this can be used on the Juki TL, but it can also be used on the computerized machines. It just magnets onto the needle plate, so then that way you can control your seam allowance, and it's actually a pretty good length too. It's strong and reliable, so it's going to stay in place, but it's also really easy to move too. So this one's great for kind of quick on the go. You can use it in between your different machines, and it's great for bag making. Set it as you need. The next one's going to be the T-gauge. The T-gauge is an awesome little seam guide that screws into the little mounting plate right next to your needle. So you look at your needle plate on your machine, right to the right of it, you might have a mounting plate or you'll have 2 little screw holes. That's what this is for. So this will screw in, you'll get the little screws, and you can adjust the T-bar according to the seam allowance that you'd like. Tighten those screws down, it'll stay nice in place for you. This one is by far the longest option, so this will keep you straight for a longer amount of time. So it's really nice, stays nice and stable. This is a great option if you're staying on one consistent seam allowance for a long time. Last but not least, this is my favorite, I have to say it, it's my favorite, the swing guide. The swing gauge is super awesome because it swings in and out of the way, and it has a 2-part mechanism to it. Same kind of system as the T-guide. It has 2 screws that screw into the little mounting section right by your needle plate, and you have two parts to it. So you can set one seam allowance, let's say at a 1/2 inch, and then the one that swings in and out of the way, you could set at a 1/4 of an inch, which is so nice because you can use the 2 and swing out the other one when you don't need it. So this is very, very helpful and useful for bag making because, as you know, if you're a bag maker, you fluctuate between top stitching, construction, and everything in between a lot back and forth. So this could be a good option for my bag makers. All right, last little one that I want to throw in there for you guys is the trolley bag. This is not specific to bag making. This is just a great accessory to have. If you want to travel with your Juki TL machine, it is totally possible. The trolley case is awesome and comes in 2 different sizes. I have the small up here right now, and as you can see, the little extension table that you get with your TL is sticking out. So the machine fits perfectly fine in here. It's a great size. It's nice and snug, zips down, has zippers for all your accessories. But however, if you want the extension table able to fit in a little bit better, you're gonna wanna get the large trolley bag. The large trolley bag will hold the extension table much nicer than the small will. So keep this in mind if you have a retreat or you wanna travel to a friend's house or with your guild. This is a great way to keep the machine nice and safe. Bag making accessories are a necessity to making your bag much faster and easier, and probably a lot less swear words. So make sure you have the right tools when you're making your bags, because they're here for you to make your life easier. So I hope you enjoyed all of these suggestions. There might be something you noticed in the previous episode that, hey, would work for you in your bag making, and that's the whole point of this series. It's just to dive into these parts and really understand how they're used so you can apply them to yourself. So these are just our opinions, and I hope you enjoyed, maybe learned something new, added something to your cart. So make sure you guys like and subscribe to this video and to our channel. We're constantly posting new content. We do have one more episode after this one, and that is the quilting episode. So make sure you don't miss that. We post every Sunday at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Feel free to tell me down below, what are your favorite accessories, or maybe tell me an accessory you would love to see Juki have. We're always trying to find new feet for you guys, ones that Juki maybe doesn't offer. So I'd love to hear, what are you missing in your stash, so that way we can help. Make sure you have that little notification bell on so that way you never miss when we post new content. You always want to stay in the loop of things because we always are posting really fun information. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys on that next episode for all the quilting accessories. Bye!